And let there be sound. Hello, everybody. My name is Kirby, Kwan Jr., and we're back here at the Ghetto Fabulous Podcast. Joining me today will be our standard co-host, your boy Skinny Jean Shane. How you doing today, Shane?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. So, to quickly address it, of course, we're not in the usual recording. Well, I don't know what's usual anymore, but we're not in the room where we usually record these, both with the video. It's just going to be purely an audio podcast. So we're actually recording these separately at our own home for the sake of safety.
Third wave lockdown, I swear.
Yeah, in Toronto, this is the third one. I kind of feel like we should have just did what Australia did and just shut everything down for like a solid, I think it was like 5 or 7 weeks. And then everything was just completely back to normal. But, we didn't. We did this weird halfway bullshit. And, it doesn't really work properly like that. But, it is what it is.
Blech. Yeah.
Blech, indeed. But that's not why we're here. That's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League, or formerly known as the Snyder Cut of Justice League. So I guess, fuck it, what was your initial thoughts, after you seen it?
After I saw the Snyder Cut or the, original one?
Actually, yeah, maybe we could quickly recap that. We did recap sort of the Josstice League in a previous podcast really quickly, but we'll just talk about it really briefly in hopefully less than 3 minutes. What was your thoughts on Josstice League?
I thought it was awful. I thought that was one of the weirdest and most incoherent storylines, especially for the Justice League that I've seen.
Very red.
Yeah, very red. All the colors were awful, and Cyborg never looked cool. Just a lot of things just didn't make much sense. That was my initial reaction to it. And then the voice lines that they had going through it was just bad in my opinion. It had some cool scenes every now and then, but overall not my favorites. I really feel as though they could have done a lot better.
Yeah, I'm on a very similar boat, except I kind of openly declared that I hated this the Justice League. It was just bad to me. A lot of continuity errors. You could clearly tell where the reshoots were, especially with Batman, because Ben Affleck was he went back to alcoholism, and he was a little bit bloated during the reshoots, and his hairline was all over the place.
The Superman edit mustache.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't really notice it that much. I feel like it's one of those things where if no one told me, I would not have noticed it, to be honest, because I watched it with other friends who don't really keep up with absolutely everything during the production, and he didn't really notice it. He thought that it looked a little bit weird when Henry Cavill said, "Do you bleed?" But yeah, that's the other thing too. A lot of reshoots for Justice League was very unnecessary, and it actually proved to be a detriment to the film. The fact that Superman was speaking in, when he was revived, and then later there's that scene where it was dubbed over Amy Adams when she says, "You smell good," and he said, "Did I not before?" When the original scene, he didn't say anything, and then he finally spoke, and then Amy Adams finally said, "Oh, good, you speak." So that actually makes sense.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even realize that until you told me.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking stupid. I keep on forgetting because Shane and I are also part of another podcast, which coincidentally, at the day that we're recording this, the next episode comes out, called RUListening, which you could find. I'll put it in the description box below, as well as the description in whatever platform you happen to be listening this to. And of course, whatever platform you are listening to this, ensure that you like the podcast or rate it 5 stars if it's on Apple. The podcast that we're talking about that we're also a part of is RUListening. So you could just simply click on that link and enjoy more of Shane and myself.
Wow. Okay. Good way of segueing that. All right.
I'm a monster at that. Yeah, but on that podcast we don't cuss, so that's why we're trying to find our bearings again. Yeah. But fuck it.
I was really trying to think can I say fuck? Yeah, I think I can actually. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. We're rated R now, unlike that first Justice League.
Oh my gosh. I just remember looking at what was it, some of the designs for the characters, right? And I was just okay, that's not terrible. But then I saw the acting, all right, and for me it was seeing Cyborg barely talk or really do anything, and then Barry talks too much.
It's funny because I thought Justice League Snyder Cut was going to fix certain things about him, because I thought the goofy run 100% had to be like a Josstice League thing. But then turns out Ezra Miller just either he doesn't know how
like that.
Huh?
Maybe they just wrote him like that, you know?
I don't know. To me, it's like either he just didn't know how to run, or whatever Zack was trying to direct him to do was lost in translation, because it just no human being runs like that aside from LeVar Ball. but yeah, I guess like now would be a good time to actually talk about the actual Snyder Cut, the original Justice League, as I call it, because that's what it was supposed to be. Quickly, let's talk about the runtime. 4 hours. How did you think? Do you think that was used effectively?
It's really tough to say. I think so. Yes, like overall, like it was used very, very well to actually establish the characters and make them like, much more fulfilling. But would I ever sit in the movie theaters for 4 hours? Hell no.
I believe that if it was going to get a theatrical release or run at least, which I believe it was initially slated for this upcoming May, if they were to do so, they would split it into two to three, if memory serves, sessions where you would have like an intermission in between.
I've never seen another movie do something like that, to be honest.
Well, if you've ever been in theater or operas and stuff like that, that's actually like a very normal thing to do. I just don't know.
But that's like live action. That's like musical theater, right? It's
not
different.
Always. It could be plays as well.
That's fair. That's true.
Yeah. So if they execute it properly, it can be translated correctly. But the reason why I asked about the 4 hour runtime is because it turns out about just under half an hour of it was slow motion.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's talk about this. It was so funny to me, all right? Like, because we watched it together. Like, we saw it together online, and when we...
That's only half true.
That's only half true, right? But, like, I just kept noticing, right, just how many freaking slow motion, like, parts there were. And in my head, it was just like, okay, this is kind of driving me nuts, because I feel as though, like... I love like the high-speed action. Like the first real part that kind of bothered me, all right, was the action scene with Wonder Woman.
What?
And no, well, listen, all right, like you see her, right, like jump in, all right, and she is like blocking the bullets and she's moving super fast, and that looks awesome. And then there's moments that just slow down when she's just kind of staring at the guys, and I'm just like, I feel like this could be used a lot better for the Flash. And then when they did the Flash, all right, it was just weird and creepy.
Well, that's just because he's literally playing with a wiener in front of Iris's face, and
that's
I'm wording
Iris,
it like,
right?
Yes, I'm wording it like that on purpose. But yeah,
okay, yeah, because in my head, I was just thinking like, okay, there's like two characters in this whole thing that make sense for like slow-mos, right? It would be Superman and then the Flash, right? I don't really know why they did like such a hype moment for Aquaman. Like, remember when he was walking out onto the, like, what is that thing?
The pier?
Yeah, the pier. And it was just slow-mo and the waves were crashing around.
Because
and I was just
dude
like...
has his shirt off. You gotta milk that shit, bro.
Yeah, I mean, like, eye candy. Great, right?
Yeah.
But in my head, it was just like, did we really need that? Not really, because we kind of got two moments of him, like, shirtless. The first one was when he, like, basically told Bruce Wayne, like, piss off, and then
There's probably 3, if memory serves. So that was the first one. The second one was on the pier, and then the third one was when he was saving Mara.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, all right, like, the movie was a little odd in terms of some of its pacing. I thought, like, the Amazon scene, like, kind of lasted a little too long. And after that, all right, then the action kind of, like, slowly begins to pick up. In my opinion, I still think that is really, really great. I don't have any issues, all right, in terms of the action. Everything was, like, really, really well done. They finally made, like, the ending scene, like the fight scene in Russia? It was Moscow, I think, or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. They made that fight scene make way more sense compared to whatever the hell they released.
Dude, you didn't like the little family and shit?
Whose idea was it to put the family as, like, the centerpiece here? That made no sense. Oh my god.
No, Yeah, I feel like the action in this is a lot better because it holds on certain shots a lot longer for your brain to process it. The way that they chopped it up significantly in Joss Weadon's version was not exactly great. So I was obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but I was formerly in film school, both in terms of film production and studies. So I could speak on this where, you know, sometimes for action scenes, especially if you're moving a lot, you need to hold on that for more than 5 frames so that you could understand what's happening. Otherwise, it's too disorienting. Now, for certain characters and certain sequences, like I think it was Dark Knight Rises, where they had Batman sort of like sneaking up on you in the shadows and it's very disorienting. Yeah, that makes sense. But like if your character is going to be very sporadic and moving a lot, like I always say, you know, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies are kind of hit and miss, but the action in that is well done, especially for CG, because you feel the weight, it holds on the shot just long enough for you to understand exactly where the layout, the blocking of characters are at. Joss Weadon took what Zack Snyder and his team and cinematographers shot and chopped it up a little bit too quickly. With that said, though, I think what Joss Weadon did better, surprisingly, for certain scenes at least, not all, is they took some of the slow-mo scenes and they cut it a little bit shorter because really what those slow motion shots are really supposed to be, it's meant to be similar to a comic book splash page.
Wait, really?
Huh?
Do you think so? Like, or was that actually like what it's meant to be?
Yeah, both. I mean, in my opinion, at least, I think it's very clear because obviously you can't put. Well, I shouldn't say you can't, but in live action, it's really difficult for you to put a still image, like a freeze frame, like you would a splash page, without it looking very jarring and out of place, right? Like case in point, raindrops are falling on my head in fucking Spider-Man 2 when the fool takes a big ass bite out of his hot dog and shit and just holds in that one frame for like 3 seconds and it was like jarring as hell.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I mean, I love Spider-Man 2, don't get me wrong, but like that was still kind of strange.
Fair.
So yeah, so the thing is, you know, Zack Snyder has been sort of touted as one of those directors where he has an extreme style, like hella auteurism, but sometimes criticized for, you know, not being a great storyteller. I feel like with this movie, it sort of, I don't want to say redefines, but it shows you that quote unquote comic book movies can be done in different ways. Because I feel like for the modern era, as in from 2008 onwards, basically the Marvel era, you know, a lot of people think, oh yeah, comic book movies always have to be comedic action movies, right? Because that's basically what the style of the MCU has, you know, evolved into, so to speak. And I think that's a terrible way to look at comic book movies, not because I dislike Marvel, but more than anything is because now you have bottlenecked all the potential for this genre of adaptations to be. Chris Nolan's version of Batman's trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, I always looked at it as a crime drama. And then Wonder Woman, for example, and Aquaman coming of age. Shazam falls into the comedic action movie for sure. And then this here is very clearly meant to be a superhero epic that still looks like a comic book movie, or looks like a comic book. Because one of the biggest debates is, if it's going to be a movie, shouldn't it be more like a movie? But then if it's adapting a comic book, shouldn't it look like a comic book?
I see what you mean now.
Yeah, and I always say, do you really want another Ang Lee Hulk?
Oh look, my god, I forgot about that.
I respect Ang Lee a lot, and I feel like, honestly speaking, it's not as bad as. That's pretty bad, actually. I can't quite defend, because the performances also are very like lets that movie down. Like Jennifer Connelly in that had the same emotional weight of a leaf that is burnt
cabinet
and dead.
Yeah.
Right? But we're not here to talk about Hulk. The reason why I did bring up that movie, as well as like, you know, the Marvel stuff, is this to me is one of the most stylized comic book movies that, when it needs to, looks like a comic book, but definitely still feels like a movie.
In my opinion, I feel as though I totally agree with what you say about it being like one of the most stylized superhero movies that we've gotten so far. Because the thing is, I feel as though, right, like when it comes to team up movies, they're actually like some of the easiest like kind of comic book movies, right? Like you just kind of put the characters together, right? You explain like one big threat, and that's kind of it. But with this one, all right, we actually got to see like each and individual character like shine like really, really well. I think that's what the 4 hours kind of lend to, right?
Especially Cyborg.
Especially Cyborg, which
You
finally
should probably move.
Oh my gosh. Which finally redeemed his like, I guess, situation from the Joss Weadon cut. Because in terms of like the stylization of like comic book movies these days, I think you're totally right. Like from 2008 leading up, but I think Marvel actually caught onto that, and they started to like kind of pivot their direction from it too. Specifically around, I would say, Winter Soldier, because if you look at Winter Soldier, it's really more of a spy movie with superheroes in it. Guardians of the Galaxy was way more fun. They stopped giving like, any crap about like, being serious or anything like that. And that is sort of like, a fun version of like a action comedy, but still like somewhat grounded to earth and like, making a bit more of an impact rather than like, what you see in say like Iron Man 1 or something like that, right?
I'm gonna disagree with you on that, with exception to the Winter Soldier, because I feel like, especially from like post Age of Ultron, specifically at around like Civil War onwards, they all started to look the same. And we know that they're directed by different people for the most part, at least. You have different cinematographers and whatnot, but they all started to look the same, which is good for the sake of continuity and I believe the word is homogeneity. But the problem is they play it. They don't do it in. They're kind of cheap with it. And what I mean by that is, and a lot of Marvel guys are probably gonna hate me for saying this, but I invite you to actually like rewatch them and see what I mean. They all look very gray. Like the colors, like the characters are colorful. Like Captain America is like literally like fucking colorful as hell, but the actual like product that you get on the screen is pretty gray, kind of bland looking. And prior to Infinity War, the blocking of the characters was not particularly great. I don't think, especially in Civil War. Like if you rewatch that airplane scene, or airport scene, the blocking is kind of strange in that scene. In hindsight,
fair.
And considering that the footage for Zack Snyder's Justice League was shot around the same time, roughly at least, of Civil War, a year later, I guess, you could tell that, like, in my opinion at least, the cinematography in Justice League is, in my opinion, leaps and bounds a lot more risky as well as rewarding, because shit actually happens.
Oh my gosh. Fair. Although, like, what you said is just kind of giving me, like, oh god, there was this one joke just kind of floating around on, like, Instagram and Twitter of, like, all the DC movies just being, like, too dark. Not, like, material-wise, but, like, color-wise.
To that, I always point them at the final battle of Endgame.
Yeah. Fair, yeah. But still, overall, I think, like, you're totally right in that this is, like, stylized, it's definitely much riskier, as you said, or right? It's really taking just, like, Zack Snyder's, like, vision and just kind of running with it. And I am perfectly fine with that, because I think overall, all right, this tells a much more interesting story, because this is something that I was kind of thinking about a lot when I was kind of, like, going through the whole thing, which is, what origin story is this following for the Justice League? Because there's a lot out there, like, in terms of, like, the canon, like, quote unquote, comic book material. And in my head, I was trying to figure out, like, what Earth are we on? Like, what is this storyline? Almost none of the ones that I had in mind actually lined up with this, because this actually felt a lot closer to Justice League Dark Apocalypse War in terms of, like, its story.
I believe, yeah, and we addressed this very briefly in the predictions episode podcast, or podcast episode more so, where I did mention that animated film took a lot actually, I should say, of some of the earlier drafts that Snyder had for Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's a lot of parallels and similarities in that regard. The thing that I like about this particular story of bringing the lead together, it takes a lot from the New 52. It takes a little bit from that really shitty storyline, fucking Future's End.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. As well as Injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they took just the right liberties from inspiration from those three relatively unrelated stories, and they took just enough from the three so that it is fairly cohesive. Granted, it never open-ended, and that's unfortunate, but like I'm very interested. I'm hoping that at least we get some kind of follow-up, whether it's a comic book, an animated short, or something. Well, not a short, because that's not going to be enough, because it's probably going to be...
Are we skipping to the ending right now, or are we going to be talking about Knightmare?
First things first, I think we fucked up and we forgot to say that we actually really like this movie.
No, I remember I said that.
We're like 20 minutes in and I didn't say anything about that. But yeah, I guess since we're already talking about the story, we talked about sort of bringing the lead together and for what reason. I guess we should quickly address actually Steppenwolf.
Thank God they actually made Steppenwolf like more relatable and a lot more like, I would say, interesting. Because the thing is, before, right, like, he was just, like, this hideous carbon cutout, like, in the Joss Weadon cut, right, who is just, like, for Darkseid, and then he just runs around and, like, kind of gets the shit kicked out of him. Go ahead.
The other thing is, just the biggest thing is just, it's a very common mistake that you see in poor writing is... There's no real motivation behind a character's actions. Here, it's very clearly stated, well, mostly clearly stated as to what happened. He wants redemption because apparently, he pulled a mark and he betrayed Johnny. He betrayed Darkseid apparently, and he just wants to redeem himself, for the glory of Darkseid. One thing I do want to mention is I actually think his voice was better in Justice League.
I actually liked his voice a lot better here because I thought it was way more iconic.
That's funny because it's the same voice actor. The reason why I say I don't like it as much in Zack Snyder's version is because there's a little bit too much filtering going on, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to make out what he's saying. And it gave me some Tom Hardy Bane flashbacks.
For me, it was I totally know what you mean about like sometimes I have no clue what the heck he's saying. But in my head, I was legit thinking to myself, like, I don't know, man, he's an alien. Like, maybe this is just how it works.
That's racist, dude. You just assume the way that aliens work.
Well, let's be real. He spoke English like the entire time, so...
That is true.
But
yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's just like, I'm so glad that they actually had the freaking balls to bring in Darkseid. And, like, we literally saw, like... what he was supposed to look like, because I'm pretty sure like that part was just cut right out from the Joss cut, right? It wasn't like reshot and like CGI'd when we actually saw Darkseid the first time.
You mean as Josstice?
Yeah.
I unfortunately did not read into that. I think so. Okay. I can't confirm that. Okay.
One way or the other, right? It was awesome to actually finally see like a live action version of Darkseid. And he's freaking ugly, which is great, all right? Because he's not supposed to look like, amazing or anything like that. And when they actually gave the reason why he was so interested into Earth, it made more sense. Because I could not remember at all what Joss's, like, idea was in terms of, like, why they were invading Earth. Do you remember?
No. Here's the thing, right? For preparation, I've rewatched both the 4-hour Zack Snyder version as well as the Justice League version, and no, I don't remember why they did that.
So they just wanted Earth just cuz.
I guess, yeah. Or was it implied in the Justice League version that the 3 mother boxes were already on Earth? But then if that's the case, my question is why?
Yeah, and that's like what the Zack Snyder cut actually answers properly, right? The whole like anti-life equation is here, and to me it made more sense in terms of like what the heck are you guys even doing here, right? I will say though, the Zack Snyder cut had a lot of really great tie-ins compared to the Joss Weadon one. Because we literally saw like, full moments of like dead Green Lanterns throughout the entire thing, which I was kind of hyped about. And
is that how much you hate the fucking like Ryan Reynolds movie? Fuck these Green Lanterns. We're killing all you motherfuckers, even Kilowog.
I am waiting for DC to actually just wake up, all right, and give us like a Jon Stewart like Green Lanterns movie. Either that or like a Guy Gardner one. That would be hype. Dude, I'd be so
missed opportunity. They should have just casted John Cena for that. Give him a ginger bowl cut. Guy Gardner.
Well, instead we're getting him as Peacekeeper in the new Suicide Squad movie that's coming up.
Yeah. I don't know. I think personally I would have loved to seen a Kyle Rayner. That could just be me because like I'm a fan of like the 90s rosters. Like I personally prefer Ginger Wally West as the Flash more than Barry Allen, truth be told. And while I like Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, I don't know. I think having like a younger, more like artsy like motherfucker as Green Lantern just makes more sense because then the imagination is like unmatched compared to the other two.
Yeah, I mean, like, all the constructs at that point begin to make, like, much more sense.
Yeah, like, he can literally create, like, a fucking, like, green giraffe with, like, 45 caliber, like, machine guns mounted on its, like, eyes or some shit. Like, Jon Stewart would never think of that. He could fucking, like, make a green version of the Toys R Us mascot.
Well, there is one moment in the comics that I'll tell you about later, but let's get back to the
Thank
Zack
God
Snyder
Green
stuff.
Lantern isn't a fucking crackhead.
Oh my gosh. I will say though, alright, like Zack Snyder's cut also, because of the extra runtime, because of all this, like, extra material we got, alright, it made the characters' motivations make a lot more sense. Because remember Aquaman, he just kind of shows up, pisses off, bruh. And then he's just like, hey, now I work for you guys, right? Whereas in Zack Snyder cut, alright, Atlantis got assaulted. Atlantis, like, actually got attacked. Yeah,
and then Volko was like, bro, you gotta stop running away from your fucking problems, bro. You need to grow up here.
Exactly. You go. Man, I can't remember the actor's name. What was the actor's name for
Willem Dafoe?
Yes! Oh my gosh. Batman made sense, alright, in terms of, I would say, just his overall motivation, but I'd still think that they didn't really talk about him being okay with bringing back Superman compared to BVS, because this feels like they really backtracked on that still.
Yeah, it's not nearly as bad as the Joss version. I feel like he backtracked on this. You could chalk it up to desperation, but my one concern with that is the line when he says, when Alfred asks him, oh shit, like, why are you so sure that this is gonna work? And then he goes like, cause of faith, motherfucker. Well, he didn't word it like that. but
yeah.
That'd be funny, cause of faith, motherfucker. But yeah, that's like the one thing that kind of like, I kind of wish you said because we have to or something, or it must or some shit, or cause desperation. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel as though like they still don't really fully know like, what to say for that, all right, in terms of bringing back Superman. But the thing is, I thought like the build up kind of leans to that of like, because we have to, because what was it? They faced Steppenwolf like 2 times up to that point, and each time they got their ass handed to them.
Completely unrelated. Ben Affleck looks great in this movie.
Yes, he does.
As Batman. Like, at first I said I hated the Justice League Batsuit because it just looks huge. It doesn't look right. It looks right in this particular film. I'm still not the biggest fan of the cowl, as well as the little weird like padding pieces on top of his muscles because it just doesn't make sense to me. But it does look significantly better in this film. And the rendering on Cyborg also looks a little bit better. I feel like the ray tracing is a lot better because like it doesn't look like his suit is made of diamonds now.
Yeah. I will say though, right, like, because I'm just kind of like digging into the story at this point. Because there were two moments that I was just like, I don't know why you would ever do that.
Martha Manhunter?
3 now. Now that you say that. No, but the first one, right, was actually like Cyborg's like origin, right, where like, okay, sure, like car accident, but then the father like hangs him up like a freaking experiment in his own lab. And then the mother box, like, heals him, quote unquote, all right? But it takes his only good arm and then the rest of him too.
Yeah, like they had the like, hey, we know you have this arm and it's like pretty important to you because like otherwise you're just gonna have half a face or maybe even like a third of your face as like the remaining human bits. But you know what, fam? We're gonna give you some servos instead, Regin. You're finna be a transformer.
It's like we need to upgrade everything, just fucking everything across the board except your face.
Windows 10 that sucker, bro.
That part to me was just like, why would you ever do that?
Okay, what was we cleared up the Martha Manhunter one, so what's the third one?
The third one was actually, we already spoke about it, right? Which was God, like, I'm kind of like between two, actually, because the third one I was going to say was them not saying a single reason why they should go back to Superman, right? But the other one that I had like in my mind, right, was
I just cleared that up right now, actually.
Go ahead.
So the reason why they said it is because, you know how Salad Stone revived Victor using the mother box, and as such, it technically awoken and sent a Wi-Fi signal over to like Darkseid and shit?
Yeah.
They still didn't invade because they knew that Superman was on the planet.
There you go. That actually clears it all up.
And also, Shane, shame on you because they actually said that. You just weren't fucking paying attention.
I'm tunnel visioning on certain things right now because I'm trying to find like the other one, which was still. We spoke about this earlier. Ezra Miller as the Flash is the weirdest rendition of the Flash I've ever seen. I really don't like a lot of his voice lines, and I really don't like the way he portrays Barry Allen.
I'm glad that that they took away the brunch bullshit.
But I'm really glad too. But
then they had the resume bullshit.
They had that, all right, and then they gave him like his moments, right? They finally gave him like okay, like Speed Force, action, right? Which was. They gave it twice. One was when they revived Superman, and then the last one, right, was with Cyborg, right? When I heard him like scream out his voice lines of like, I can't maintain the charge, like at the very end, I kind of cracked up because in my head it was just like, oh my god, his voice is breaking. He can't even keep up with this. Like,
I think that was fine. If anything, I didn't like how expository he was when he was like running back in time. Was like, gotta pick this rule that I never. I'm like, shut the fuck up and do it, bro.
I actually didn't mind that part.
If he just said, I can't break this one rule, this is the exception, and then he does it, cool. But it's like, yo, I know how running works, bro. The more you talk while you're running, you're actually losing your breath, and it's not helping, bro. Just fucking do it, bro. Either say everything at the beginning and do it, or do it and then say it at the end. Like, bruh.
Yeah. Or how about the prison scene, right? Where like his dad's like, Barry, you gotta stop. And he's just like, I wonder why I ever wanted to become a CSI, Maybe it was for my dad who was like wrongfully imprisoned for murdering my mom. And to me it was just like, wow.
Yeah, that's just sloppy writing though. That's just like sloppy exposition.
Yeah, to me it was just like, you guys kind of just gave him all the worst lines in the movie, and then apparently they just ported it over into the Joss cuts. Which is oh god. I really, really hope that they fix him in the future, especially with Knightmare. But
I kind of feel like all they had to do to explain like his motivation for that is just have when Batman meets Barry, and then he analyzes the suit and shit, and then he goes, "Stop right there, I'm in," and then Batman can ask him, "So why?" And then he could just naturally say, "It's like, well, you see." My dad. Yeah, because maybe you can even throw in a line like Batman said, like, I know you were at this fucking like prison facility and shit, visiting your dad, and whatever.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense because
he's supposed to be a fucking detective anyways, right?
He's supposed to be smart. He's supposed to be like quirky.
No, I'm talking about Batman.
Yes.
Like Batman's supposed to be a detective anyway, so he could at least figure out that like he was there with his dad, and as Batman, I would assume you could put the two and two together. Maybe he's visiting his dad constantly like this because something is wrong and there's something that we don't know, and then he could just simply ask Barry, or he could just put it all together because he's Batman.
Exactly. But I feel as though, right, like the one issue that I see with a lot of these voice lines that they gave to Barry and like, how much they kind of like messed his character up a little bit is I don't know how well Ezra Miller is going to stand on his own when he actually gets his own movie. And that's actually in the process right now.
The funny thing is I actually really liked him in all of the Knightmare scenes.
Because he didn't talk?
Well, yeah, that, and also even in like BVS, like you could tell in his inflection and his voice and everything, he can act, and he does seem like a superhero that is, desperately trying to save the world. Even though it was a weird line, like in BVS, when it was like, Lois is the key. Am I too soon and shit like that? Like the way that he said it, like I believed him. Like, okay, yeah, that seems like a man that is like desperately trying to save the world or whatever the fuck.
A man on a mission.
So, to quickly address it, like the story points and beats are vastly similar to, of course, the Joss Weadon version, but the character motivations, the pacing, as well as sort of
the build-up overall.
Yeah, the build-up overall makes a lot more sense, and it addresses a lot of things both in previous films as well as sets up a lot of things for potential succeeding films, a lot better than Joss Whedon's version. However, it does break some of the continuity that is in the DCEU right now, especially surrounding around Aquaman. Like Mira is British now. I don't know what that was all about. I also felt like that was kind of unnecessary, but it didn't really bother me until I remembered that like Aquaman happened, and I was like, oh, okay, well, shit. I guess she's British now. Fuck it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Same thing with Volko, Willem Dafoe. Every time I think of Willem Dafoe, I just think of him as a Green Goblin when he's talking to himself in the mirror, and then it goes like. And then he goes like, oh, what must I do? And then he fucking goes, the heart, Norman, the heart. But that was completely unrelated. I just felt that I just wanted an excuse to say that.
How did you feel about the recasting for Jim Gordon, though?
Yeah, it's good. It's fine.
I think it's fine too. I've thought as well. Like it's just like, I don't really care.
Give me pictures of Spider-Man.
No, give me pictures of Batman. But here's the thing. I said earlier that this really leads up to a number of storylines. And these were things that I like picked up more so like coming to the end. I don't know if you noticed this, right? You saw Batman like at the very end, like he was standing on top of like this massive like machine or something like that, right? And there were these dudes tied up.
That was supposed to be like the Frank Miller style Batmobile tank. Yeah.
Those guys, if you actually pause and like look at them properly, all right, they are the mutants from what was it? Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. So in my head, I'm thinking like, are we actually going there with some storylines? Like,
oh, also that CGI Batman, by the way, looked fucking terrible. I'm just saying.
He looked awkward. Like I also thought it's just like, wow, he's kind of chunky. I don't really know why.
No, to me, I'm just like, wow, that's a great presentation for like a pitch, I guess. Oh, that made it to the actual film? Well, fuck.
And then they also brought in like, some kind of discussions of the new gods because you saw like a full scene of like Darkseid, Desaad, and Granny Goodness all on Apocalypse. So I think, although I remember hearing news that like there was going to be a New Gods movie, but it's been canceled right now.
I genuinely don't think that casual fans are ready for New Genesis and shit.
Me neither.
Because you're gonna have to explain like Forager and then like the fucking like Orion and shit. Yeah.
Because even in like the DC like comic like universe, right? They are kind of offhandedly mentioned now and then, unless the events actually like completely focus around them. But nonetheless, I think Zack Snyder's one, right, expands the universe so well and actually brings in more characters, right? Because we got Ryan Choi, we got the Atom.
Whoa. This is some shit that bothers me about the Josstice League version, bro. We had an actual Asian character that was fairly prevalent in this movie. Cut him out. We had literally a whole family, a whole black family, right? Silas Stone, Victor Stone, Dr. Stone, all gone. Fucking Iris West, all gone. Fam, explain yourself. Why are you removing all these minority characters, bro?
I also thought it was just like, what the fuck?
Also, conspiracy theory. I'm pretty sure the motherfucker that damn near killed Iris West is also the same motherfucker that killed.
It's the same truck from the same day.
Except now it's like a fucking like a beef patty or some shit he dropped. Different fast food every day.
I'd like to think that he's actually going for the same hamburger.
like it's still there. It's just rotting and shit. It's like it's still good though.
Oh my gosh. We had like just really weird, like, what was it? Car crash scenes in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And to me, alright, it was just like,
Superman should have been there and been like, I hope this doesn't detract you from driving. Statistically, it's still fucked, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But there was one thing that I found really, really great about Zack Snyder's movie, outside of like, expanding the characters, alright, and like bringing all this in, right? It feels like they're trying to tie in, alright, some of the other DC movies, Suicide Squad, because at the very end, yes, we're gonna be talking about, like, in my opinion, kind of the most controversial part about this whole movie.
Can I voice it when it comes to it?
Sure. In my opinion, I have no idea how I feel about Joker being brought in, specifically the Jared Leto Joker.
Okay, so I actually I shouldn't say wrote, it's all in my head, a little parody to Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back, and I think it's pretty funny because it was like, in my mind, I'm like, we bring in Joker back, yep, and we're gonna prove that this man could really act, yep. The best part is we got rid of his tats, yep, but he still ain't got his eyebrows, though. What's up with that, Zach? Seriously, what? Give the man his eyebrows. Why does he not have eyebrows?
Oh my god. For me, right, I still have issues with the way he portrays the Joker, right? I thought his voice lines, like, they weren't the worst, but...
He laughed like a duck, though.
Yeah, he laughs like a duck, right? And he didn't give us his Joker laugh, right? Which is, I'm really glad, because his own is, like, in my opinion, one of the worst we've ever heard.
Worst is subjective, definitely the weirdest.
Exactly.
You know what? His laugh would work better if he was Penguin.
Yeah, actually, that would make more sense.
That's probably what was bothering me the whole time. Like in Suicide, that one of the many reasons that's been bothering me the whole time in Suicide Squad.
That's not the Joker laugh.
Yeah, it's the Penguin laugh. The other thing that was bothering me, and we discussed this like actually last night briefly in Suicide Squad. Quick tangent is Will Smith as Deadshot. His eyepiece is on the wrong eye.
Yeah. I mean, Suicide Squad is again like just this weird mishmash movie. And the thing is, like, with Jared Leto, like, kind of coming up at the end, right, we also got word about Harley Quinn. And to me, it was just like, wow, we're really kind of, like, paying homage, all right, to, like, that awful movie called Suicide Squad with Will Smith. And...
What was the exact line he said? It was some shit like, and when she died in my arms, she told me, when I kill you, and make no mistake, I will fucking kill you. To do it slowly, some shit like that.
Yeah, like to do it slowly, right? And you actually see like Joker shake, alright, which to me is just like, alright, you kind of like redeemed that like version of Joker a little bit that way. Exactly why you would bring Joker into the Knightmare world and like carry him along and give him a machine gun, I don't really know.
Okay, so I could clear this up, but the thing is, this is all implications, meaning that it's not explicitly stated. But if you analyze from the BVS nightmare sequences and the Snyder Cut's nightmare sequences, you could tell that continuity wise, technically speaking, this what we see at the end of Justice League comes before BVS. As in the BVS nightmare scene. And the reason why we know this is because this is when Joker first gives him the card. If you pay attention to all of Batman's like like, I don't know, army or like regime or whatever the
gear.
fuck. Yeah, all of his dudes, his bros.
Yeah.
All of their guns, they have like a Joker card taped onto it.
Right.
So we know for a fact that this is supposed to happen before the Knightmare sequence in BVS. Strictly talking about Knightmare sequences here. So that's the first indication. Now, what is also implied is because they were able to revive Superman, that Knightmare sequence, the Knightmare continuity now has shifted a little bit. And it seems like at the very least, for whatever reason, Joker is aware of that, which is why he always says, imagine all these other... It's either that or he's just like stupid, and it could be that too, actually. But he says something along the lines of like, you see, imagine how many like fucking like other universes that you created where everybody dies because you ain't got the balls to do shit yourself or whatever the fuck, right? So there's that. The other thing is the one thing that breaks everything, and honestly, as dope as it was to see, it doesn't really make any practical sense, was Henry Cavill in the black Superman suit.
Oh yeah.
Because if memory serves, and I might be getting this wrong, in Cyborg's
Visions of Knightmare or whatever.
Yeah, which that doesn't hold any real continuity because there's no sense of timeline.
Yeah.
He's actually wearing the red and blue suit. And he's holding Batman's cowl. Oh, wait. Sorry, that clears up something. That's meant to be, if we were to fail right now, that means everything that was shown in BVS would have happened. Batman would have died. That's why Superman has his cowl and stuff like that, right? So what the ending scene shows is, no, they were able to fix it because they didn't fail. That's why Superman is still wearing the black suit when he shows up, but clearly something still went wrong, which is why they say Lois is the key.
Right.
Which is why that Lois is the key thing is still a thing. Now, in a few script leaks and shit, let me actually take a drink of water because I'm losing my voice.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So in a few like script leaks and shit, wow, that sounds completely different. Apparently, now, it's revealed that, in the movie itself that Lois Lane is pregnant or potentially pregnant. So in the script leaks, there were two versions of it. Either that child was going to be Bruce's child or Kal-El's child.
Could you imagine if it was Bruce's?
Pimp, bro. That pimp, bro. No, but so basically, when Darkseid eventually does invade Earth, two possible outcomes, right? The first one is, and I do say the first because this happens first, Lois Lane dies, and then Kal-El finds out that the kid isn't mine and shit, right? So he gets pissed off and he hates Batman basically now. On top of that, too, because he is at a vulnerable state, Darkseid is the one who kills Lois. Darkseid's already there and he influences Superman with the anti-life equation and shit. So that's why he has him on his side and shit.
Right.
So that happens. And then we get to the scene of the end of what actually happened in Justice League Snyder Cut. So that whole scene where it's Mara, Cyborg, Flash, Deathstroke, and Joker. And Superman pulls up. He's wearing the black suit because that's meant to be the first quote unquote possibility that happens. So that's when Batman asks Flash to go back in the past and say Lois is the key. So that's what that really means, right? So then what would happen, and this is meant to be for Justice League 2 and 3. So then what happens is Flash warns Bruce. Bruce is like, fuck, okay, I know what to do. We need to save Lois, right? So then Batman does sacrifice himself to save Lois. So rather than Lois Lane dying, Batman does. Now this is where the scripts are like kind of wonky. Like sometimes it's implied that it's Batman's child, other times it's just Superman's child.
Yeah.
But regardless, in this ending, because Superman doesn't lose, Lois, because Lois is the key and shit, right? Like he's able to still not be completely influenced by the anti-life equation and fuck up Darkseid and whatever, save the day and shit, right? But then,
Right.
but then it shows in the future there's still a Batman, and that's meant to be Lois's child.
What would you do if that Batman in the future is named Damian Wayne?
Fuck Damian Wayne, bro. Like, quick tangent, like, fuck Damian Wayne. And I don't know why Warner Brothers and DC was trying to shove his ass down my throat. Like, no one, because here's the thing, right? And this is a problem that has plagued Batman for a while, and more than anything, it actually plagues Spider-Man more than any character, is let these characters evolve. And now you might be saying, yeah, but Kirby, they did let them evolve. That's why he's the fourth Robin, or fifth, depending on how you look at it. He's the latest Robin. But the problem is we're still using the dynamic of a fucking child. Like I thought we moved on from that with Tim Drake, because he at least was a teenager and he was a smart one. He was a hacker. He wasn't like a physically gifted being like Dick Grayson as an acrobat and Jason Todd being Jason Todd. You know what I'm saying? Like, we finally had an interesting version of Robin that was a child. We get to see him evolve into a teenager and eventually onto his own guy. And then now, you know what? We're going to do it one more time. And this time he's going to be yet another gifted motherfucker, but he's going to be angry and a dickhead. And I'm like, oh, Jason Todd.
Yeah, except now he's like the League of Assassins, and he's actually blood related to Bruce Wayne. Oh my god.
I don't mind the idea of Batman having a child, but I just, like, the other thing too is, like, give me a good character too. Like, I just don't like Damian Wayne. Like, he's literally a brat. Because if you look at other iterations of Batman having kids, like, look at Helena Wayne from, I think it was Earth 2, if memory serves. That's way more compelling of a character. Not the CW Birds of Prey show. That was kind of strange. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's my quick tangent on fucking Damian Wayne. Oh god, I hate.
Yeah, for sure. I think that what you said in terms of like script read it, like, because, again, this is all kind of conjecture, right? Like, we have no real idea, like, if we're even going to get a Zack Snyder, like, Justice League 2 or 3.
Restore the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
Verse.
Yeah, exactly. That is, like, I really think everyone should kind of be blasting that at WB. But nonetheless... In my opinion, all right, I think all those make a lot of sense, like the scripts that you mentioned. The only thing, all right, that I'm still trying to kind of like wrap my head around, all right, in terms of comic book storylines, right, like, what this is following, this actually feels very, very similar to Earth 2's storyline, or I think it was Earth 2, but basically, all right, like in that storyline, the Justice League just straight up lost, right? Batman was murdered, right? Diana died to Steppenwolf in that storyline, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Anyways, and all the superheroes went missing, right? They basically all followed like the boom tube back to Apocalypse.
Sorry, just real quick, which Earth 2 are we talking about? Is this post New 52 or pre-crisis?
Pre-crisis.
Okay.
And in that storyline, all right, like we get a new set of superheroes, right? We got a new Hawk Girl, we got a new Green Lantern, a new Speedster, etc., etc., etc. And we learned what happened to the old superheroes. One of which is Superman's storyline, which is kind of similar here. What happened to him in that storyline was that he was captured by Darkseid. And Darkseid being, the real sadistic freak that he is, basically experimented on him, all right, extracted his blood and created clones of him that dressed in the black Superman suit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So in my mind, I have to wonder, right, like, because we saw that moment when he like puts his hand on like, Clark, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to wonder if that's actually more of a moment where like Clark is like at his lowest and Darkseid, right, not only takes advantage of that, but beats the crap out of him for it, right? And basically, all right, ties him up, all right, experiments on him, and then we get the clones that we saw in that storyline. Because in that world, the entire like Earth is just messed up, and that story. Good.
When you did watch that scene of Cyborg's vision and Darkseid's putting his hand on his shoulder and shit, didn't you think Superman looked a bit slimmer?
I did. Yeah, I thought like it was a little. I thought it was just the angle, but
that was actually a I might ruin this for you. I don't know, and for other people too. I don't know. That was actually a shot that they took from Man of Steel. It's right after he snapped Zod's neck, and that was technically Michael Shannon in his arms.
Okay, that's now more hilarious of a scene.
But that's, I'm not gonna lie, that was well integrated. It's just, to me, I'm like, this looks strangely familiar, because leading up to this, I rewatched Man of Steel and BVS, so I was like, that's what it is.
Man, God, like,
yeah, it was right before or after he screamed. "Ah!" Yeah.
We're gonna talk about this though. We're gonna talk about, like, you know, the movie being like this weird jump cutty, like, man. But in my head, all right, I still think that, like, we might actually be following like an Earth 2 storyline mixed in with an Injustice sort of deal. Because Lois Lane is dead. Batman like rallies. Yeah. Batman, excuse me, rallies some, like, you know, I would say like mercenary styled like superheroes at this point. Deathstroke, right?
Deathstroke.
Sorry?
Mohawk Deathstroke.
I actually didn't mind that design so much. I thought that was okay. And, like, you know, we go face off against an evil Superman. Now, here's the thing, right? I don't know, right, if the WB, right, like, you know, DC in general is going to greenlight a Justice League 2 and 3. Mostly because I feel as though this stands really, really well on its own because it was 4 hours long. And having that sort of like weird taste in your mouth of like, oh, like, you know, we got like this Joss Weadon cut, which made not a single lick of sense. And we had to watch like a recut of like the actual raw version of the movie for everything to make more sense. I don't know if WB is okay with like green lighting, like, yeah, do another 4-hour version.
Another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
you continue.
I was gonna say, like, the Joss Whedon cut one, right, sucked because, all right, it just kept pulling things from Zack Snyder's one and then just adding like Joss Whedon's like flair to it. It was cut, mashed, pasted, edited like hell, right? And it still sucked ass. So if you want, right, like, you know, if everyone's like asking like, you know, bring back the Snyderverse, right? I don't know if I want to sit through another like 4-hour movie.
I don't think it's going to be a 4-hour movie though.
You think that, like, you know, they're actually going to like just cut it down, or like we're going to get like 6 movies now?
Maybe. Well, that I don't know. But the reason why I say I don't think it's going to be 4 hours is because I feel like the only reason why this was 4 hours is because they wanted to give the fans everything. Because I'm sure the initial Snyder cut, so to speak, should have, you know, it provided that, you know, Zack Snyder's daughter did not pass away and everything went smoothly. I don't think that version of the movie would have been 4 hours. I'm fairly sure it's going to be about 3:30, like 3.5 absolute max, but more closer to 3 hours. Because like I said, the Snyder cut has, the slow-mos alone were equated to about 30 minutes of runtime. And then there was also about 2 to 3 minutes of Norwegian women singing after, you know, Aquaman took off his shirt and smelling his sweater. Which I'm sure no one cared for at all.
Give this man more money.
Yeah, and things could have been trimmed down too, admittedly, in the Snyder Cut version. Like where, like for example, like we've seen Steppenwolf talk to Desaad 3-4 times saying about the same thing. It kind of, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of reminded me of The Room when like Lisa kept on talking to Odette, her mom, about, you know, fucking cheating on Johnny, and Odette talking about her breast cancer and everything.
Oh no.
Was her name Odette? Or was it Claudette? Whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, what I was gonna say though was I'm noticing a pattern with a lot of these superhero properties, which is that the figureheads or whatever the fuck, the head honchos over at their studios just need to sometimes just believe in a director's vision. And I'm not strictly talking about Zack Snyder. You know, let's talk about, and this is my little segue here, let's talk about other properties like Superman, right? The first Superman movie with Chris Reeves, directed by Richard Donner, I believe, was a huge success. And immediately he wanted to jump into, in fact, he did jump into production for the second one. DC, Warner Brothers, for some reason, or whoever had the distribution rights, didn't believe in them for some reason. cut Richard Donner from the project and replace him with Richard Lesnar, whatever. And then, lo and behold, I think all the way back in 2003 or 4 or some shit like that, they finally brought back Richard Donner and showed the real cut, quote unquote, for Superman 2. That's just one example, and that's one example in DC's track record. Another example is George. Now, this is a bit of a different example, but George Miller initially was going to make the first live action Justice League movie. I don't remember the whole cast of characters. If memory serves, DJ Catrona was going to be Superman, Armie Hammer, Batman. Shit, I forgot her name for Wonder Woman. But the point is, in the mid to late 2000s, they were going to make a Justice League movie, and that was scrapped. And the main reason, admittedly, was mainly because of just wrong place, wrong time, because of like the writer's strike and shit like that. So we'll excuse that. But then look at on the Marvel side of things, right? Oh my God, fucking Spider-Man 3 is messy, and the reason why it was messy, I still don't think it's a terrible movie. It's a bit wonky, but it's whatever. It was messy because Sam Raimi did not want to write Venom into the story. He really wanted Sandman and maybe the Vulture. Yeah. But then fucking Avi Arad, as usual, this fucker, Avi Arad or whatever his name is, wanted to have fucking, Venom in the movie. And then they put Venom in the movie, but there was already these plot lines of Harry Osborn, and like I said, Sam Raimi really wanted to push for Sandman in there, and then as such they had to push away the Lizard for a fourth movie, which of course didn't happen because Sony and Avi Arad was like, yeah, we put in Venom, and then that got ruined. And then the biggest offender to this, or the biggest not offender, victim to this, was the Amazing Spider-Man movies. The first one I think was okay. Like, it's perfectly fine. It's a bit bland in certain areas, but it proved to be enough of a success to create a second one. So then Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes along. They fix the suit. Looks beautiful. Casting, pretty darn good. Why the fuck are there so many characters? And why is there so many scenes that we see in the trailer that was never in the movie? Because Sony didn't know what the fuck they wanted to do. They shot everything. And then the editing, there was no way for you to make that cohesive. There just wasn't. Because at least, the Goblin in Spider-Man 3, there already was the buildup. So we didn't need to spend too much time with that. The Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 2, who the fuck is this guy? And why does he have the same hair as Tobey Maguire in the third one? And then, sometimes people forget about this, but Felicity Jones was in there, and she was going to be Black Cat. And then also there was someone, I forgot her name, but someone was casted and on set, and they shot scenes with her as Mary Jane. And shit like that. Oh my
gosh.
So all of this, and there was this really interesting line in the film, which in the trailer, where Harry Osborn says to Peter Parker, he goes like, something along the lines of, "Oh look, we've been stalking you all this time. Why? Isn't that the great question, Peter? Never made it to the fucking movie."
Yeah.
Like that would have been interesting, and I think and then Star Wars 2, actually, even though it's not a comic book.
Oh my gosh.
Property. Like, we all saw the bullshit that happened after whatever the 7th one was called. Yeah.
The Last Jedi.
Force Awakens.
Yeah.
We all saw what happened after Force Awakens, and it was a fucking shit show. So, like, just let these creators do what they want. Like, if you don't believe in them, just don't have them be a part of the project. But if there's already ground laid out there for you, let them continue it.
Right. For sure. I totally agree with you, mostly because I feel as though, like, the very first movie that I had, like, some of these gripes with, in terms of, like, oh my god, like, they just don't know what they want to accomplish with this.
Ang Lee's Hulk.
Ang Lee's Hulk. As well as, what was it? The Sony version of the Fantastic Four?
Fox,
my bad, yeah. That one, it was, like, edgy and, like, dark in some spots, like, visually.
Fantastic?
Yeah. Well, it was the one with, like, Miles Kilometer, or whatever the heck that actor's name is.
Miles Kilometer?
What's his name? Miles Teller? I don't even remember.
Yes, but fucking Miles Kilometer. What the fuck was that? It's actually fucking jokes, dude. Miles Kilometer.
Was it him? And then like
Miles Teller.
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan as like the Torch.
And then the one dickhead from Sorcerer's Apprentice as Doctor Doom.
The Thing? No, wait. No, I know what you're talking about, yeah. Yeah, like they just had those people acting in it, right? And like it was kind of telling like this weird, darker version of the story. And in my head, it was just like, oh my god.
That's a very good example too. They had reshoots, like the hair continuity on Sue Storm was terrible. Like sometimes it's dyed blonde, sometimes it's a wig, sometimes it's like a natural brunette wig. Like just stick on a fucking hair color, dude. Why is that so hard?
Dr. Doom never really looked perfect, but man.
And then like they voiced over every time he said his name because it was supposed to be Domashev.
Yeah, like it was just like they didn't know what exactly they wanted to do with that movie, right? They just wanted like, oh, superhero stuff, go.
Another recent example I can think of, again, not a superhero property, but Disney released a film called Artemis Fowl, based off of.
Oh no!
Now, the thing is, they probably had some kind of plan for it, but the problem was they kept on. They just didn't believe in themselves, and then they just kept on dubbing these lines in about this fucking MacGuffin that you never see in the film.
Yeah.
And just
I can give you another version of like a recent Disney product that was, in my opinion, like I have very like difficult feelings about it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you've seen it yet. WandaVision.
Yeah.
I'm sure like, some people are going to give me flack for this by all means. What I have an issue with, right, is that movie makes literally no big moves in the Marvel continuity.
Shane, you're no longer allowed to be in my house.
Here's what I mean, okay? They hyped up, all right, like a few things, right, in WandaVision. One, all right, they were talking about like, oh, why is it like a hexagon, right? And to me, it was just like, maybe it means AIM, right? Like that sector of like, bad guys, right, in the Marvel universe.
Advanced idea mechanics? Was that what it was?
I think so. I don't remember. They hyped up, all right, like, oh, we have this one engineer. He's really, really great, all right? And I'm just like, Reed Richards?
Nice.
And what they showed us instead was just some random army lady that you don't even need to remember her name because she never shows up ever again. They keep hyping up, all right, like, maybe it's Mephisto, right? Like, maybe we're actually going to go there, right?
I don't think anyone actually said that, like, Disney-wise. It was just some fuckface who said that, and everyone believed in it because we all kind of wanted to see it.
And everyone just ran with the idea. Like, it just brought itself into this universe, right? And everyone just took it and ran with it on Instagram and whatever, right? Multiverse, all right, with, like, the recasting of Pietro, Quicksilver. Almost
boner.
Yeah, boner. Like literally none of that is ever expanded on. None of that is ever talked about, right? And the thing is, all right, apparently the reason why, all right, and this is supposedly like some rumor that is floating around, Kevin Feige or whatever, right, didn't want any actual big moves to be made in these TV series. He doesn't want any, like, real Marvel, like, heavy moments to pop up with characters. And in my head, it's just like, I feel as though the writers do. I feel as though they want this. Because it just feels as though, like, what would be the point of hyping up the engineer, right? Because the writers actually tweeted out, oh, keep an eye out, all right? This is going to be a really big character. And then it's just some bland army person that doesn't even really have any lines.
I think the writing, sorry, not the engineer thing, like that was probably a cop-out. But I could kind of understand, at least in my eyes, and I could be wrong about this, why Kevin Feige might not want to have ultra big moves in the television series. And my hypothesis would just be, this is a great opportunity for us to expand on characters that are either very bland or don't have a lot of screen time in the films, while at the same time setting up stuff that you should see for future films. Like, for example, we finally got the Scarlet Witch being called the Scarlet Witch, having the right costume, the expansion of the powers, as well as an explainer for like previous continuity to flesh out the world in regards to witches and Wiccans and shit.
Just magic in the like Marvel universe.
Yeah. The other reason why I could potentially understand why you don't want to make giant moves in television shows is, for one, this is the first one of the series where we're going to exclude Agents of Shield. What the fuck? Agents of Shield. This is the first one that's like directly starring one of the big name characters in the films. So you might want to play it safe. But also more so secondly is because the main franchise is the movies. So you don't want to have huge events happen in these shows that people might not have the patience to sit down and watch. So that when they watch the films, I'm like, what the fuck is that? So yeah.
I guess, but I can also see a lot of moments when if you are, let's say, if you are careful enough, right, to actually, like, not make them insanely big, but still hint at what we, like, we're thinking, like, in terms of the characters, I think it's fine, to, let's say, the thought just kind of left my head.
I think you were probably going to say some lines of like, you still just want to have some inkling of like, potential
of, like,
multiverse stuff.
What you actually want to have some inkling of why the hell should I watch these TV shows?
My counterpoint to that is they did. At the end of the series is you hear Billy and Tommy asking for their mom, basically.
Yeah.
And there are no clear-cut answers. As of right now, there's no clear-cut answers from the creators as to what the fuck that is.
Yeah.
I think the larger issue is just that you are such a comic book consumer that you don't fully see sort of like the casual consumer aspects of these and why they need to make these type of decisions. Because obviously I wanted to see more. And I think they did get us hooked. And now we do want to see more, but we can't until further notice.
Yeah.
So that goes to raise the question of, did they do their jobs really well to the point where it's like giving you the effect that they wanted? Or is it just, or are you mad because you didn't get fully what you wanted?
That I didn't get like the comic book lover payouts.
Yeah, because like there's a difference between making a movie or there's a difference between liking what you get and wanting what you personally desire. Because obviously I've been wanting to see a Nightwing in a movie for the longest time. Or when Henry Cavill dropped out and they had all these stupid ideas of like bringing in like Supergirl, fucking her character to be a Superman clone, I was really pissed off at that. But then I realized, technically speaking, the casual consumer probably doesn't know about like Kara's own personality being a hothead and shit like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, like that's what Melissa Benoist has been doing on the CW for this time. Maybe that's what the casual consumer knows of Supergirl. So it's a case of like we're finally bringing comic book characters, especially in other forms of media, into the mainstream. Now the difficult thing is we need to sort of accommodate for the mainstream so that they could eventually accept the what's the word looking for? The source material of the comic book continuities and storylines better before we could get these clear-cut adaptations for comic book readers. Because right now it's just for the casual consumer still, in my opinion. That's like the weird line that like these creators have to walk on.
Yeah.
Arguably speaking, I would say Zack Snyder really leaned more on towards like the latter half of that, where, trying to please like, comic book fans. And you could tell in the way that it's shot and in the stories that he's drawing inspiration from and stuff like that. And you could make the argument that Marvel is playing it very safe and making movies for the casual consumer.
Yeah.
To a degree.
No, I definitely see what you mean. Like, which audience do you really like focus more towards, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally see what you mean there. Because I feel as though, right, that if you are being careful in terms of your characters, in terms of making sure that, like, no big promises are made in the TV shows, it kind of gives me a sense of like you're playing with like the expectations, right? Like you're really kind of like just playing with like the viewers. Because in my opinion, right, like if the writers didn't like, hit us with like, oh, you guys better get hyped, right, about the engineer or whatever, right? Or really focus on like the hexagon and stuff like that, right? By all means, just leave it as like a rumor mill, right? Where like, the fans are like kind of exploding on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, right? In terms of writing out their stuff. Because like when it comes to like, writing out your own theories and stuff like that, all right, that's what like, both casual as well as like comic fans, I feel, all right, would really, really have fun with.
See, I think that culture though, it's starting to kind of ruin the enjoyment of movies and TV shows to a certain degree, because like I don't want to, like, okay, my classic example of this is like I said, my friend watched the original Josstice League and didn't notice the whole like weird upper lip thing being fucking strange, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how many times have you seen something and it's been spoiled? Maybe not super explicitly, but in a way spoiled because you read some fuckface like talking about it, or watched some fuckface talking about it. It's like, I don't know, like I get it, we're all fans of these properties, but I feel like it's also our responsibility to not ruin the enjoyment of this for others. Like imagine, now granted, this is an older show now, the episode epilogue from Justice League Unlimited, where it reveals that Terry McGinnis is Bruce Wayne's son biologically, like that was a great twist and it made a lot of sense and everything. But imagine if some fuckface just told you that and you never get to enjoy that episode ever again. Or Return of the Joker, where Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, where it was revealed that wasn't actually the same Joker. It's actually, I don't even want to talk about it because it's such a great film, but it was actually Tim Drake. Like, if someone told you that, now it's fucking ruined. Like, I kind of feel like sometimes people should just not ruin it for people. I know it's a weird thing to say, but it's like, let them watch it too.
We're getting into like spoiler culture, so
yeah, and it's like, why are we purposefully? This is like a personal rant of mine. Why are we purposefully like causing a detriment to our potential enjoyment of something by having to know everything? Like, isn't it like in film studies, Eisenstein stated, oh god, here we go.
Wow. Okay.
Eisenstein like created, I'm gonna like paraphrase it so that it's a lot more consumable, or digestible, whatever. Like the theory of encoding and decoding, as in very simply just whatever the creators want is encoded into the product. You consume the product and decode the message and storyline and everything. Why is there now a third party that's fucking shit up with this thing? Because now it's no longer a perfect message between creators to audience. It's now creators, theorists, dickheads that just hate Marvel or DC respectively or disrespectfully, and then finally, after all of this telephone message bullshit, finally gets to you. A movie or TV show or comic book or whatever should be enjoyed direct from the distributors, not from hearsay and rumors first. Because now you're ruining the experience. Kevin, if you're listening to this, he does this bullshit a lot. Like when BVS like first had like some like pre-screening reviews and shit, it was like, hey Kirby, let me tell you about this. I'm like, how about you don't? He's like, it's not even about the movie. I'm like, you just mentioned it's about BVS. It's like, yeah, basically people are not liking him. Like, see, now you just adjusted my potential enjoyment or hatred for this thing, my consumption of this, because you gave me this pre-notion. And then he did the same thing again with fucking like Godzilla versus Kong. He like, look, I was like 98% sure that like Mecha Godzilla was gonna be there. I just wanted to have the shock of seeing him or whatever the fuck, right?
Oh my god, Mecha Godzilla was there?
Yeah, or whatever. But this fool was still like, hey Kirby, nothing to do with like Godzilla and Kong, but let me tell you something to do with Godzilla and Kong. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Do not do that.
Yeah.
That ruins it for everyone. Like, When Martha Manhunter, by the way, I saw Justice League a day early because my smartass remembered that in certain places time is ahead of us. Like Australia is like on the day of we're recording this, it's the 10th, but on Australia it's already the 11th. So my smartass basically abused a VPN to see Justice League a day early, right?
Wow, and nice.
So I had the inside scoop already. I didn't say shit to anyone. I knew Martian Manhunter was in it, and the only inkling that I gave to people was I said, now the whole entire marketing of Unite the Seven finally makes sense. And that's it.
Man,
I don't even think I said that. I just had the poster and I said, now the marketing material makes sense. And because the poster that says Unite the Seven is just Aquaman, like it's not really in your face or whatever. If you're going to do shit like that, that's fine because it doesn't spoil anything. It doesn't ruin the consumption for anything. Do not ruin the consumption of films and TV shows for other people by having like your bullshit, like whatever the fuck.
No, I totally see what you mean. But like this is really kind of reaching into perspectives, I guess. Like in terms of like, you know, viewing perspectives as well as like, you know, the director's perspectives in terms of the stories.
It's not even that. It's simply, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but like it's all good. It is easily. It's just fucking I want to be first. I want to say that I'm right. That's all that it is. And that's fine, I guess. But at the same time, it's like being right, being correct. I mean, you hear me say this all the time. So was I right or was I correct, right? Like that should be discussed amongst your own like people that want to do that. You know? Like the fact that you're like now, because the consumption of art in the form of motion picture is one of those ways, is one of those forms where it's like it's meant to hit you on the first and second time only. But if you're telling me everything that happens, then it's already ruining that first time, which means I don't need to see it twice, which means I don't need to see it at all, effectively.
Yeah.
If you're strictly there for the narrative, plot, and story. You know, visuals are different, of course. But like, but yeah, like it's, in my opinion, I'm not saying that it's ruining the movie industry, but it's certainly ruining something like in regards to the way that movies are perceived and stuff like that too, even in regards to the box office. Because if there's leaks of, let's say, like, Avengers like 5 is going to be fucking terrible or whatever, no one's going to want to see it now. Compared to before, we had these opinions from professional critics, but even then we know that opinions are subjective and we choose to whether believe them or not believe them or take their recommendation or not. Now we have these dickheads that are just and I don't want to name any names, but there's people out there who literally, they don't just say, yeah, the movie was bad or whatever. They literally do this thing where they fucking twist their voice and shit, and they're so animated. And they say, yeah, this movie's great, this movie's terrible. It's like, how about you speak like a normal person, Chad?
I think I know exactly kind of what you're talking about. Because I feel as though this is just more like, you know, something to add on to the point that you're making right now, right? Is that with those sort of like criticizing voices and stuff like coming up, I feel as though as well, like there is the effect of they overhype the movie to the point where like it can never really like ship, I would say, like, you know, all those expectations and like meet them. And the example that I'm going to use here is the new Spider-Man movie, Far From Home, actually, No Way Home. Where, oh my god, there was rumors of Sam Raimi's Doc Ock getting in there. There was rumors of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, all of them showing up. And then all of a sudden, right, now we're being told, no, that none of that's happening, actually.
Yeah, imagine the shock if no one told me that. And we just saw it. Like how, like, Martian Manhunter popped up on Justice League.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But no.
I think, though, that, like, Zack Snyder, like, the Snyderverse, all right, would probably be, like, the iconic example of, like, those kinds of people like really using their voice, though, because this thing wouldn't have happened, right, unless those critics actually like came out just like, no, give us the real version.
I disagree with you. That to a slight what's that word?
Slight degree.
Yeah, degree, because that's an example of fans seeing that shit like was abused, basically, as in the whole film of Justice League was abused, and we publicly know that, and we want to change it, rather than let's say like someone had a pre-screening and then said it was good or bad or whatever the fuck. Like from the beginning, the public knew that this was tampered with. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, pre-screening, it was shit, whatever. This is literally because maybe DC and Warner Brothers knew this. I highly doubt it, but they knew that there was going to be like they wanted to whatever. But yeah, like this is a very extreme, strange example because the faith in the creator was already gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not a case of like. It's not a case of like a pre-screening or like a dickhead that just wants to talk about it or whatever. Like I remember, I don't know if like some young cats out there remember this. There was a time where there was an honor code where you do not talk about a movie after 2 weeks of release. I don't know if people remember that. These days, people want to talk about it instantly. And like, you know, the theories of trailer breakdowns, that's a different story because that's out in the public. You had the opportunity to see already. You know what I'm saying? That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's the shit where it's like motion picture is something that combines so many mediums into it, you know, like pictures, motion in picture, sound and shit like that. It literally teases a lot of your senses. And it's like, just let us consume it. We don't need you to explain or break down everything. You're adding more noise that we now need to filter out, or is now corrupting the way that we enjoy it. That's just my personal thing that I really like. Not as I know I mentioned I went to film school and shit. None of that matters. Just as a consumer, like I don't want you to enjoy my shit for me. Like if I ordered a pizza or if I had a slice of pizza, I don't want you to eat it for me. Is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like. Just let it be. We gotta let go of this shit.
Yeah. I'm not even sure how we got onto this point, to be honest.
But I do think that was a good rant.
Yeah, I think so too. Because, like, it's really dealing with, like, perspectives and, like, you know, how you take the movies. Because what we actually got from the Joss Weadon one was bad. And, like, with the Zack Snyder one, alright, it kind of just fixes everything.
Yeah, so I guess like that takeaway there, that's actually important, and you know, it doesn't have anything to do with my consumption of media, is I think these studios and stuff should just believe in the creators that they have selected. Otherwise, just don't select them at all.
Yeah.
Because Justice League, the Snyder Cut, to me at least, shows a great degree of hard work, dedication, and faithfulness to the source material while still trying to be innovative. It succeeded for the most part. There were certain things that, you know, were a little bit strange. Like I said, Norwegian women singing for like 4 minutes straight while sniffing a sweater. By the way, while we were watching this, as in like the second time for me and the first time for Shane and our homeboy Shamu, I kept on making a joke where it's like, that scene was pretty badass, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, not as badass as Norwegian women singing by the pond, though.
And sniffing his sweater for no reason.
Sniffing his sweater. But yeah. If you were to rate this film, Shane, Snyder Cut of Justice League, out of 5 or 10, up to you, what would you rate it as?
Out of 5, I'm going to give it a solid... Ooh, boy. I'm going to say 4.6. And I'm only saying that because of what I saw with the Joss Weadon cuts. Because I feel as though this goes beyond, alright, just being a good movie.
So the reason why I was laughing was because the reason why I gave you either 5 or 10 is so that you have a round number, so that it forces you to push you onto something, but you still said 4.6.
Yep.
I'm like, why don't you just say a 9 then?
Fuck your rules.
I'm probably on a 4-star as well. If I had to do the 10-point rating, I'm probably leaning towards just under 9 for me as well. I still like, obviously, with everything considered, especially as a self-contained thing, like with nothing considered aside from knowing that it's 4 hours, I think that it was well executed given like those restraints. And I think, you know, Zack Snyder made most of his footage that he had. As far as new inclusions, including music choices and reshoots, nothing really bothered me too much. I know some people, actually, I guess the one thing that was kind of jarring to see was Ben Affleck's nose under the cowl of the Knightmare sequence. Some people made a huge deal out of it. I didn't. It didn't really bother me personally.
Yeah, me neither.
Although his cheekbones were hella deezed, or hella chiseled in the reshoots, so there is still that degree of like continuity issues there, but it was fine. Real quick thing I want to mention: I wasn't really a big fan of the Wonder Woman like sting, like the musical sting, like of the woman just like screaming in the background or singing in the background. I'm like, I don't need to hear that every single time Wonder Woman like takes a breath, man.
I was fine with it. The only thing that didn't really kind of like make sense to me was the mascara just blows up.
Wait, what?
Anyways,
you mean the temple or all of the mascara?
All of the mascara, because Steppenwolf hinted at like Wonder Woman that he murdered everyone there.
That's not true.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I think he did that in reference to the initial what do you call that? The initial invasion from centuries ago, and then 2. I know I just said A earlier, but fuck it, we're on numerical now. And then 2 is all of the ones that died in the temple, because that was meant to be like the elite guard, so to speak.
Maybe. I mean, we'll just rewatch it and like figure it out later, I guess.
We're not rewatching a fucking 4-hour movie. You crazy? You crazy. But yeah, one final thing before we sign off, and Shane didn't know about this. So I was talking to Ruby last night, our friend, and she's down to do a Suicide Squad cosplay. Chances are she's going to be either Harley Quinn or Katana, and chances are I'm either going to be Deathstroke or Deadshot. My dude, are you down to be Captain Boomerang?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
And on such a cliffhanger, we will end tonight's episode of the Ghetto Fabulous Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on multiple platforms, including Spotify. It's been a while.
Take your time.
Yeah. Don't forget to follow us on multiple platforms, including Spotify, Google Cast, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, RadioPublic, and much more. Simply type in Ghetto Fabulous Podcast. That is GhettoFabulous Podcast. Once again, GhettoFabulous Podcast. Shane doesn't really have any public social media, but thankfully I do, in which you could find on multiple platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud. Just type in Kirby Kwan Jr. That's KirbyKwanJr. Once again, KirbyKwanJr. And like I said, don't forget to follow us on the Are You Listening podcast, as well as the Are You Cosplay channel. Which that reminds me, we finally hit 100 subscribers over at the Are You Cosplay Operations channel. You can find it on youtube.com/the letter R, the letter U, cosplay. And that will be it for us today. Shane, any closing thoughts or final words?
Restore the Snyderverse.
Exactly. And with that said, we are out. Take care, everybody.
See ya.